Hello and welcome to Chats, a television podcast, season 16, Couch Madness. Couch Madness. 16 shows enter, one emerges as the show we will watch for the remainder of our season. Who will win? Who will lose? Who will die? My name is Magellan, and trust them, because they actually know a few things. It's Alan.
This is the part where the I want song transitions into a like I need song, and I go like die, 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 die. I'm going to kill that Magellan and his damn dog. Hello.
Just wait till you get to our 11 o'clock number, huh?
It's currently 8:04, so it's gonna be a while, but
we might get there.
I was telling a friend recently, or I was telling Six, the recent guest and friend of the podcast, Six, that one of the downsides of watching this much, two downsides of watching this much Simpsons stuff. Number one, all of my references are only relevant to people over the age of 30.
Number two, you slip into a Ralph Wiggum voice all the time.
Number two, I switch in. Super Nintendo Chalmers. I was doing that way before I was watching The Simpsons. I love doing that voice. Number two is my humor is so annoying now because I just like 90s Simpsons humor is like ribald and goofy, and like it depends on your audience what part of it appeals to you. Like I tell my parents about like, oh, there's an episode where Homer catches a big fish and during a wedding retreat, and his mom, Marge gets mad, so he throws it back in love of her, and they're like, wow, sweet. And then I tell you, and it's like, the bee shops. It's just like funny line deliveries, or like the less shame thing that we were doing before the pod. Like there's just so many. My brain is replete with good and bad Simpsons content right now. And it'll continue to be until I finish this meme initiative that I talked about last episode.
That's pretty fun.
I have so many behind me and so many ahead. So, God.
I'm looking forward to way more trips down memory lane.
Hell yeah.
I don't want to, last week where I was like, should we check in on our fantasy basketball league every week? I don't want to do that anymore.
You lost this week, didn't you?
Yeah.
You fuck. I was like, do I make a jingle if we're going to really do this every week? And then I didn't do that because I couldn't find one fast enough. But I won my matchup. Thank God. That's what matters.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I'm against my roommate this week, which is scary because he knows basketball, but he doesn't know fantasy basketball. So I might have the advantage. Was yours close at least?
Look, part of it was I got some bad luck with like my star players being injured this week. Tyrese Halliburton, Giannis Antetokounmpo, both of them weren't doing super hot. And then I have two of the Celtics starters on my team, and Joe Mazzulla decides in the middle of the second quarter that he's going to sit out all of his starters because they're playing a back-to-back, and he thinks they're a little sleepy. I'm sorry, but I need Drew Holiday to get me some rebounds. That's all I got.
Literally, as you were saying that, I got a notification from Fantasy Basketball.
Drew Holiday has a more robust game than just rebounding, to be fair.
Yeah, let's be so honey. It really is.
I didn't mean for you to catch strays in that bit.
Yeah, I only caught a few. Joel Embiid shakes his head in disbelief as he walks by 7'4" Victor Wembanyama before Spurs 76ers game. Why is that a news story?
A dude goes, and that's a headline.
Write it up.
Anyway. That's the last basketball talk for the night. I hope people believe me because we've got a lot of other things to discuss here. Indeed. We got football, cheerleading, what other sports? Wish I could come with more jokes, but that's all I got.
I feel like Colonel Jack O'Neill would be into golf, but we don't have any canonical proof that that's true yet.
I bet we're going to get an episode where they're like swinging golf clubs, hitting golf balls into the open Stargate.
That's awesome. They got to do more stupid, silly shit with the Stargate. Like, we try to play bad. Or like we're bowling. We bowl into the Stargate.
Throw a banana peel in there and see how many aliens we can trip.
Yeah, exactly. The U.S. Army said we're allowed to throw our trash to the Stargate.
Anyway, it's Couch Madness. 2 shows enter, 1 will win. You heard me say all that at the
Round
beginning.
2,
Sing
you already
it.
know.
It's round 2. And here's the thing with round 2, okay? It shows that we watched the first episodes of, or the first nights of television of, in some cases. And now this is the second night of television that this show had in its existence. We are going through our 8 winners of round 1 to narrow down from 8 to 4. And this time around, we have our 9th seed Heroes, which defeated 8th seed Misfits in round 1, against our 1st seed Stargate SG-1, which defeated the 16th seed Alias back in round 1, all the way back at the beginning of the season before we had to go on hiatus for a little while. So it's been a minute since we've hung out with either of these shows, actually.
Mm-hmm.
So we watched season 1, episode 2 of Heroes, which is called Chapter 2, Don't Look Back. And episode 2 of Stargate SG-1 called The Enemy Within. We'll talk about Heroes first, since it's the lower seeded show. The screenplay for this episode was written by Tim Kring. It was directed by Alan Arkush, airing on October 2nd, 2006. Alan, what happened in Don't Look Back?
You better not. I wrote longer summaries for these because they're the second episode and I don't have to just give you the premise. More things happen in these ones. In this episode, we resume with the story of Nathan, who refuses to admit that he can fly. Peter Petrelli discovers that his father had depression and unfortunately took his own life. Someone in Mahinder's apartment plants surveillance bugs, but he and his father's friend discover them. Meanwhile, Hero finds a comic book that shows exactly what happened to him last episode, which appears to have written the author of the comic book is Isaac, and he goes to his apartment where he finds Isaac dead and then rolls the clock back. Interesting. He's got time travel powers too. Nikki realizes that her mirror alter ego is helping her in tough situations. And we also meet Matt, a cop played by Greg Grunberg, who can hear what people say before they say it. And he's arrested for a murder because, thanks to his gift, he knows suspiciously too much about this murder. And Claire continues to hide the truth about her until her father, who is the evil man looking for our heroes, sees her tape where she shows her abilities. Big events, Magellan. Big things going on. Part 2.
Oh, yeah.
How are we feeling about Heroes? 2 episodes in.
The worst possible thing happened to me. Okay, I have to be clear. I have to be clear about where I'm coming from right now.
Okay.
I am wearing a Stargate SG-1 quarter zip right now.
Gang, gang.
I'm sitting in my office chair. I thrifted this very recently. I was excited to have it. And there is a part of me that's like, we got to do this season so that I can really maximize this purchase. I can make my dollar work for me. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
And the worst possible thing happened to someone in that situation. Heroes had a good second episode.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
This show was. There's something good going on here.
Yeah, they're cooking. They're fully cooking.
They're fully cooking. I think we might have like varying feelings about the different character plots.
Oh yeah.
You know, it's one of those shows where the ensemble is kind of split up and doing their own things, and they're going to converge probably in half a season or something. So for now, it's really a roller coaster of, well, I'm enjoying this story, I'm not enjoying this story. So we can break those down. But it was better, more interesting and engaging than I expected it to be. Because I thought this show was a little campier than it is, which is kind of a knock against it also. It's like too gory, whatever. But it surprised me with how much I was like, okay, Heroes, I'm enjoying this. I'll have to actually give you a fair fight against Stargate SG-1. I don't know. What'd you think of this one?
I watched both of these at work, which kind of led to me feeling flat about them in general. But I was like, let me separate myself from the method that I watched them and come to them realistically. I think Heroes is fun. I'm just really weary about how long this fun is going to keep up. Because what they're doing, I guess you could call it mystery box storytelling. Yes. Even though that's such a cursed word in the chats community, we don't like to talk about mystery box shows because of how bad they've gotten in recent years. But like they're building a really, really, really strong foundation in this. They set out to finish the metaphor out. They set out the building blocks in episode 1, and now they laid them on the floor in episode 2. We are introduced to the concept of a villain, Siler. Is that his name?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
We have another hero. We know who's investigating whom. We have heroes interacting with other heroes. And we have Hero being a hero and doing his whole thing, which is like kind of bigger scope than the rest of the show is so far. So I think it's still working for me. This felt like chapter 2 of a really good book. I was like, yeah, we got people. We built up the cast a little bit more, so everybody has somebody to work with, and we're kind of humming along. I wasn't like floored by it, but I was like, this is a good. I like to distance myself from it. Like, this is a good script that is well acted. We actually got a comment that I wanted to discuss before we got into the plot here.
Okay.
About the first Heroes discussion that we did, and about the concept of diversity and how we talk about diversity on chats. So this is from a listener of the podcast over on YouTube, Frankie, who graciously wrote a really long comment that was some excellent constructive feedback about how in that first discussion, the Heroes, part of Couch Madness, we spent a lot of the early goings of it discussing how, Mahinder's plot's a little bit like racially awkward because they make him a taxi driver, and, Hero's an office worker, and how tropey it was. And Frankie was basically saying that they were a little bit bummed out and frustrated by that critique because, for multiple reasons. Number one being like it's an older show that was extremely common for the time. But most importantly, like their second point was the show starts there and like develops characters out of those tropes. And very quickly and as we can see in episode 2, they're already not like those tropes anymore. I think there are still tropey aspects to it, but I think more importantly, it is our responsibility both to bring up and not bemoan the diversity of the television shows that we're watching. Like, I do feel an obligation to mention things like that. However, if it becomes excessive, as multiple people have told me it was like a teensy bit excessive on that episode, that's on us, and that's something that we are cognizant of. I don't know, what do you have to say about the situation?
Well, I appreciate the feedback. It's like a mistake I'm happy to make, if that makes sense. Like, I would rather bother people in this direction and get this feedback and then adjust, as opposed to doing the opposite.
Yes.
And I can definitely see, I felt very similarly. I don't remember if I talked about Sense8 when we talked about Heroes, but I felt very similarly when we watched Sense8 to how I felt when we watched Heroes, where it's like, and Sense8 is a show that I really love, and I love the ensemble of it. And also, you can say that at the beginning of that show, okay, a lot of these characters are kind of pastiches at best, stereotypes at worst, from like a very kind of Western or even American white perspective. And those caricatures are the seedlings of more fully developed characters that emerge over the course of the show. So like you're saying, we can already see from episode 2 here that the characters of Heroes are much more than what's presented to us in the pilot episode. And also, I think, it's important, like you were saying, to continue to acknowledge when we see an ensemble get constructed in front of us, like, what are the mechanics of putting that group together, which I think could have been more clearly the focus of that conversation, as opposed to like quibbling about the particular way that particular characters were characterized or whatever. Because, like, for example, Hero, I really like Hero as a character. I like this idea of like the office worker who has time and space powers because he wants to escape that office environment. And there is something that's grounded in Japanese work culture to that. Like, that feels like an authentic type of character archetype that might appear in a story that's actually centered in Japan or written by Japanese authors or whatever. So like it's maybe we kind of went a little too far in saying like, oh, this is a little off-putting because there's a grain of truth there, I guess. But it feels very written by white people in a way that I just can't quite get past in that first episode. So that's kind of where I land on it. I appreciate the feedback, and also I don't think I disagree with anything that I said, but like you're saying, it's a matter of like emphasis,
how much we're saying,
or at this point, which is fair.
100%. And it's funny because like we both enjoyed Heroes episode 1, we both enjoyed Heroes episode 2. It's also just in a matchup podcast where we're talking about it in the context of both shows. So
yeah,
I think.
And
go ahead.
Sorry.
No, go ahead. I didn't have an actual end to that sentence.
Well, and I think it's interesting to talk about it in comparison with a show like Stargate SG-1, right? Where like we're to a certain extent we're kind of like docking Heroes for trying to do something that it should be trying to do. If you're going to tell a story about superheroes emerging on Earth, you should want to like have characters that are within a more global context if you're trying to tell this sweeping grand story. And so like maybe there's an argument to be made that like a swing and a miss is better than what Stargate SG-1 is doing, where it's like, well,
not
it's
swinging.
A bunch of they're not swinging. It's a bunch of white American military people and their like alien friend of color going around and colonizing the galaxy or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I like in my head don't critique Stargate SG-1 as much because maybe there's like the absence of the attempt, which is not drawing my attention to it. I still was planning on talking about how white that show is.
Yeah, of course.
But it's kind of a different thing because it's like not trying. So I don't know. Maybe that's also like a way to give Heroes a little more grace or room to make mistakes because they're attempting something a little more complicated.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know.
And like I try to remind myself too of the context. Like this is a network television show that is still managing to feature actors from all these different countries and having them speak, a lot of them at least, speaking their native language. I think it doesn't do it any favors by comparing it to Sense8 also, because Sense8 just like diversity wise like blows this out of the water until it's doing a very different thing, right? It's about how these people are connected, whereas Heroes is more about like the why do we have the powers though? Like even though these shows have like similar DNA in them, fundamentally they have completely different aims, right? Because I think Sense8 lands on like it doesn't really matter how this happened. What matters is that it did. And Heroes is like, no, but we need a character whose entire arc is answering why we have powers. And like we need another character who's villain, you know, the villain of like, I'm gonna steal powers, and we need a person who like it's all about the powers. So I think that's another reason why like the diversity question like doesn't come up as much unless we bring it up. Is the show doesn't center it. It just is it is lacking in certain elements of diversity, or is tropey in ways that are a little disappointing. That's objectively true. So let's talk about the episode, right? People are excited. People love Heroes. We liked Don't Look Back. What did we like about it, Majel? Overall, what were the things that you liked?
I think they do a really good job of extending like the thing that when you do a great Game of Thrones episode, right, is gonna visit all of the members of the cast and kick their plot forward maybe 3 scenes or sometimes 1. And you're gonna be like, God, that was great. Oh, but where are they going next? And it felt like everybody got a little bit of that. Everybody got kind of the next level up of what was established about them in the pilot episode. You go from Peter Petrelli, like, oh, did my brother fly to save me, to, oh, your dad tried to commit suicide too, to, bro, I didn't just fly, you flew. And you're like, what?
Wow. Yeah, layers.
Yeah, you go from Mohinder being like, what was up with my dad, to being like, whoa, my dad had like kind of a thing going with his neighbor or something, and now that's going on. And
Yeah.
then what else happened? Claire's dad keeps,
He's
putting his fingers
investigating.
together. Oh, I found your video of you being invincible. So everybody is like, their plots are developing in ways that I found engaging, and I think it's well paced. It's just entertaining TV. I think it's very capably doing this particular kind of like scattered ensemble thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't feel confused by any or like overwhelmed by the number of plots.
Right. 100%
Which is
agree.
huge. Because when they introduced Eden, Nora Zehetner's character,
Mhm.
shout outs to Nora for being awesome in 2005's Brick. Of course. We love Brick here. That was one of the first movies that Magellan and I and our friend Jim really got bonded over. Back when Ryan Johnson wasn't never mind. Yeah, she's there. They got a thing going on, but she knows his dad. She has a salamander named Mohinder, which is strange. I have a feeling she's gonna do some stuff. I spoiled some stuff about her by accident because of the Amazon X-ray, which is annoying, but love her. I like that they added people to most of the plots. Like, I think if I have any, that was like a thing that really added that added value to everything. I mean, like Nikki and Isaac's plots didn't exactly like jump forward in any meaningful ways. I guess Nikki like sees all the violence that her other half did and it's like, uh-oh, I'm a criminal, and is like reckoning with that, and then like wakes up in a car that she doesn't remember being in or something, and she realizes the alter ego took control for like a significant period of time. I feel like there's some sort of metaphor in there about mental health that I don't expect the show to handle delicately. Not that that's a bad thing. That's just something to acknowledge.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. The other thing that I felt important to me about what we were saying about the like diversity lens on the plot here is how we have like two blonde white women making up 40%, not 40%, but like 20% or 30% of the cast space here.
Yeah.
And then we add a white guy into it in this episode, like an LA cop is not helpful. But anyway,
shout outs to Greg Grunberg, but
yeah, he does a great job. Again, I'm speaking about like kind of a structural thing, more so than like the effectiveness or the whatever of individual characters. But yeah, the Nikki thing, it's still bugging me that her power, the metaphor, feels based in the whole like I'm a single mom by day and a cam girl by night. I'm living a dual life, and also I have Moon Knight powers or whatever. But yeah, maybe they are trying to nudge it into a mental health thing, or I don't know. Yeah, it gets into tricky territory of like I have multiple personalities, or nobody does that well.
No, I don't think so. And I do like Ali Larder. Like, I think she's playing it well. I'm like genuinely surprised. Like, I did that. It actually happens a lot in the Stargate episode as well. Like, character who's realized like weirdly similar in a weirdly similar way. And I like that performance a little bit more, but she's doing well with what she's given. And it's a fun mystery of like, what happened? Where are you waking up now? What did you do? Who did you kill? And like answering those questions. She's got a built-in mystery. And speaking of Greg Grunberg's character, Matt Parkman, Officer Matt Parkman, it's what, 2006? We really like cops in American media, and we continue to like cops for a long time. I think we're finally bending away from that trope, but there's that line when he finds the girl and he's like, I'm a cop. I'm one of the good guys. In this, like, Mr. Rogers says, when in danger, look for the helpers or whatever way. And I'm like, I get it. And I get why he would say that. But the show is really, like, wants you to like Parkman and be like, come on. Like, it's Matt. You like Matt because Greg Grunberg's got that kind of face. Like, he's just one of the dudes. And that doesn't work for me, obviously, as somebody who doesn't have the reverence for the cops or for policing that the show kind of wants me to.
Right. Well, yeah, it feels like they're, I think this and what's his face from Sense8, at least at the beginning, until Will becomes a little more cool. It also feels like they're kind of riffing on like pre-established stuff from television, like not even necessarily assuming that we have an affinity for real life police officers, but also just the television thing of like,
Right.
it's a white guy protagonist looking dude in a cop uniform, so you know that he's a good guy in this television show because that's like how TV works.
Yes.
But it does feel weird to add that guy in episode 2. I do like, what I like about him is he's not like a cool cop. He's not a detective. He's kind of a chump and like a little bit, I don't know. Like he keeps failing his detective test. And what I like about his power as metaphor situation is he's just sort of like not doing great and is worried that people think that about him. And his power is he can read people's minds and hear them think how much they don't like him and think that he's not that great. I liked that a lot.
Yeah, he's got problems with his wife. He has to go to couples therapy. He's a bad cop, and then he gets arrested. Like, I think that part is fun to me. And you made a really good point there earlier about how they're like kind of playing with known tropes. And I think the coolest thing about Heroes, and this was like a Sensei thing as well, but they're maybe arguably doing it better here, is each character's storyline and plot arc resembles a different type of show or movie. Like we have our police procedural, we have our like high school coming of age story, we have our, you know, seedy mystery with like Mahinder's plot. We have different tropes of shows that manage to coalesce into something that feels very whole. I think it feels like this is all part of the same show. It's not like oh, this part is way darker, because like even Claire's stuff, which is in theory like the most lighthearted plot line of the show, is still like if you get you know, tackled by a football man and he hits your neck, you're gonna twist your neck around and you're gonna die. And she doesn't die because she's Claire, but that's what would happen if you got decked by a linebacker. So like I think it's cool that even the like lightest plot manages to still be gruesome, and the show has a lot of like thematic consistency despite each little storyline being its own kind of show.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I enjoyed Claire's in this. I felt like they really wanted to write more high school stuff. Like we learned a little bit more about Zach, her buddy, who is like probably gay, right? Like probably gay.
I think they're doing like I'm your friend who has a big crush on you thing.
Oh, the other guy in a high school show trope.
Yeah, the like closet bisexual guy thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
I believe it. It's not great. They introduce us to Jackie, her sort of rival character who tries to flirt with boys so that they ignore her. They're just doing it. They're doing a high school show, and then she gets pulled aside, and there's that lineup scene that's very scary when like the FBI or whatever come to the school and they're like, which blonde high school girl?
Why did they block this scene that way?
Where she's last or whatever?
Just like, it makes no sense. What cops would do this or set this up like this, or like they're shooting it for a particular visual sequence of things, but the place on campus where they're doing it is like barren. It was such an odd scene that made no sense whatsoever.
Yes, the set there was very strange.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are certain scenes where I'm like, wait, where did the budget go? The first episode had like an incredible budget and like was so well dressed and everything, and then suddenly like just certain shots. I felt this especially with Stargate actually, where I was like, some shows spend all their budget on the pilot and then have nothing left. It's like weird to me. Yeah. But yeah, I did feel weird with the way that scene was blocked. It was very strange. But she gets called out, and I forget where her plot ends on this one. It's just that her dad knows. He sees the video and goes,
yeah, that's like the last. Her friend's like, I lost the video. And then we see her dad watching the video. The dad,
cartoon
this dude
evil.
is like twirling his mustache. It's pretty funny. And from the jump of the episode too, like you think they would try to preserve in this episode this kind of ambiguity of, oh, you saw hints that he was associated with something bad in the pilot. Maybe he's bad, maybe you don't know. But from minute one, he says to her, what I quoted when I introduced you, where he says, trust me, because I actually know a few things. And then she walks off screen, and then the camera holds on him, and he does the whole dramatic face change, look off into the distance, I'm the bad guy face. This is like 3 minutes into the episode.
My theory... Go ahead.
Well, I want to hear your theory.
My theory is that Sylar is our main bad guy, and that he works with Sylar, but he makes like a fake turn or something. I don't think he's full evil. I have a suspicion because of the whole, like, I'm your stepdad. I think they're going to try to give him a chance, an out, because he's not the main bad guy.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like, he's a little too evil too soon. Is what it feels like.
Exactly. Like, he's going to burn out, and then it's like, okay, who's the bad guy? Oh, it's Sylar. Got it.
Yeah. What do you think of the dad's dialogue? They just keep writing lines for this guy, and I kind of like it because he can't even be a dad without being an absolute creep show.
Yes.
He's like, promise me, or like, I just want you to always be my little girl so I can protect you from the world.
I promise I'll be your little girl as long as I can. Ew, weird.
Freaking Freudian stuff going on here that we're gonna have to really do some therapy on. But anyway.
Yes. Yeah, there was like, that I felt the same thing when the woman in Mohinder's plot was like, oh, your dad told me to call him like I forget what she told it. Like, there was the nick. Do you have it written down, the nickname for Mohinder's dad?
Or it's like Big Papa, but not Big Papa.
Yeah, something like that.
I think it was Papa something.
Papa Suresh or something.
Yeah, something like that.
It's weird. I'm just like, what's the relationship between them, between Eden and Mohinder's dad?
Yeah,
I don't really know. These are just question marks that this episode put up for me that are not red flags but are weird. I also wanted to shout out Hero's plot. You know, it's like, it feels like it's the quote unquote main plot because it's the one with the most like show encompassing powers. We get to see actual time travel here. He jumps ahead to I think Isaac's dead, right? Is that what happens? And then he rolls back, and then he goes back to Japan. Like, he goes to like 5 weeks or something in the future, and the police are interrogating him. And there's that awesome scene where he's like, call my friend. And they call him, and he's like, I haven't seen him in 5 weeks. Like, I don't know where my friend is. I'm scared he's dead. And he's like, 5 weeks, huh? And then looks out the window. Nuke goes off. He rolls it back. He's back in Japan.
I thought that was really cool. That was a great way to show us what's at stake, to show us that we don't know as much as we think we know about what's going to happen, to make Hero more important. I thought that was really well done. Until the narrator voice came in and said, whose voice was that? Was that one of the characters?
I think so.
Oh, I didn't like that. I did like the narrator voice over the previously on part. Did you have that? Or see that? Watch that?
I did write that. Yeah, I wrote that I loved the narrator voice on the previously on, where I was like,
previously on Heroes.
I was like, damn, this guy's cooking.
Well, it was narrating what the plots were on the previous episode.
Right.
Like, this thing happened and this and da-da-da-da-da. I want that all the time.
Yeah,
I want someone to hype me up to watch the show.
Yeah, running during the episode, I want a guy to be like, and then, Mohinder went back to the lab to figure out what his dad was doing. It's like, yeah. I know the show's going to get dumber. I want it to get dumber. I think what they're going to do, based on the era this came out in terms of like how is the show going to escalate in stupidity, is more and more people that we already know are going to be revealed to have powers. I started thinking about that with Matt Parkman. I call him Greg Grunberg because he's been a like internet/podcast personality since I was a teenager, like since the show was on. I remember listening to Greg Grunberg on podcast in like 2009. So like dude's been around. Same. But like when they introduced the FBI agents, I was like, oh my God, like these lady, like, you do not hire legendary actress Clea Duvall to play an FBI agent without her being very important or having powers. Nikki's son is being talked about too much. I bet you Nikki's son has powers. I'm like, who doesn't? Just throw powers out there because, it could. There's no rule about like they have to be at a certain event. It could be anybody. I don't know what caused it yet. Yeah. So I think that's where the show is going to lean into like getting stupid, and some of the powers are going to have a cost to them too. And oh yeah, I'm waiting for them to cook with that stuff. So every time somebody new is revealed to have powers, I'm like, yeah, okay.
Are you interested in what the deal is with the powers?
I feel like it's a thing you could answer in one sentence, and that's always the sign of a bad mystery. Like, if it's a good mystery, then it will require a little bit of explanation. It will require some fake outs, and then it'll have like a big moment where you understand parts of it. But if I just looked up like where do the powers come from on Heroes, and Google was like it's from a meteorite, I would be like, well, that's boring. That's not exciting at all. So I'm kind of hard to answer your question.
Yeah, I think that's what I was getting at by asking it. I don't find myself super interested in like the source of the superpowers. I'm interested in what the deal was with Mohinder's dad and Sylar and why they're talking to each other and why he thinks Sylar's patient zero. What does that mean? Maybe there's something there. But I think I'm just a lot more interested in the characters and what they sort of uncover about their relationships than I am about how the powers operate. I think I was a lot more interested in how the powers operated, just to keep comparing to Sense8 for a second. When we were watching Sense8, I was like, oh, why are they connected? Oh, there's this whole like clusters and there's like a network of blah, blah, blah,
and it all revealed that you didn't need to know. Cool. It was all cool, but then it was like, okay, it wasn't like, there wasn't a single thing that they said that you're like, oh God, what the...
Right, true, yeah.
Different type of mystery.
Yeah.
I don't know, yeah. We're not here to make a decision yet, so I guess additional thoughts on Heroes for now. I really liked the Petrelli plotline. I'm not harping so much now on like these characters are clearly the A plots and these characters are the B plots. I'm trying to be fair to everyone, like I think the show is attempting to be. Because I think in the first episode I said that like the Petrelli plot is clearly an A plot, and like yeah, it is. It's got a lot of development that's happening faster than everyone else, but like whatever. I'm gonna be generous. I love the performances in this one. I think the acting is shockingly good. That scene in the hospital where the mom tells Peter that his father committed suicide. I was like, wow, I believe this. I believe the way that this is being delivered, and that he's like, what about the other times that he got sick? And she's like, those were all failed attempts. She just says that to him. I'm like, this says so much about who she is as his mom. Like she's almost like the mom, the mother from Arrested Development, like Lucille Bluth, where I'm like, you're like intense in a way that I am into, obviously.
Well, and when I liked also in that scene, like you're saying, she's very severe, and when she's describing the father's multiple suicide attempts and the fact that he was eventually successful, she says he finally got what he wanted, and it's like, oh my God, what a thing to say. And then it also told me a lot about her, where the way that she's trying to convince Peter, don't try to kill yourself again, is she says, you were always my favorite. Just like the depths of the manipulation and the like, can I trust what you're saying in the Petrelli family, and him the whole episode trying to get from his brother, like, dude, just tell me that you flew. I'm not going to go to the press about this.
So interesting.
Like, speak to me. The dynamics of that family, I agree. Very fraught, very intriguing.
Because then he finally is like about to say it, and then Peter is the one who flies. I had to watch that scene back a couple times because it was also blocked really weirdly. And it was like a nighttime scene, so I was confused. But yeah, that's a good twist. That's something that I'm glad I didn't know ahead of time and was like, oh, neat.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm fascinated by Nathan's like relentless choice to never talk about it. Yeah. And it's like, to your brother? Like, what's the deal with you guys? Yeah. So the show's got me by the hooks a little bit. I have a couple more stray notes, and then I want to hear yours, if that's coolio.
Cool.
Jackie, the other cheerleader, makes fun of Zach for having an erection in the boys' locker room. Another reason why I'm like, is that going to be the reveal? Also, just a fucking weird thing to say to a person.
Yeah.
I sometimes think about how weird our middle school locker rooms were and how
Mhm.
full of just dormant testosterone and toxic masculinity they were, but
Mhm.
no one was getting boners that I was aware of. I
Mhm.
liked the whole, like we said earlier, Hero stealing the comic and being like, this is a comic about me. And he's like hearing the lines as he's reading them. That was very,
That was
very,
super cool. Yeah.
it's very Station 11 core if you're nasty, because it's also about realizing that a comic is kind of about you. And then when he runs away, they play Indian pop music. And I was like, that is a really cool and elegant way to integrate your storylines into each other.
Yeah. I
Is
like
to
that.
play the music from the other types of storyline to keep you thinking about them.
Yeah.
Uh,
I agree.
that
I like that
those
choice a lot.
lots of good choices on here. Lots of good choices. But any other notes you had before we move on to our second show?
I don't think so. I think I said them all.
Amazing.
Oh, the freaking guy who got his brain popped out. There's so much
oh,
gore in this show.
Or like sliced the head off and then they took the brain out.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Siler, baby. Right? That's Siler did that.
I think so.
Siler seems cool. We got to ask friend of the podcast Jim about heroes. Like I need an expert.
Hearing the name Siler immediately teleported me hero style into 9th grade biology class where Jim is like explaining
Yes.
heroes to me.
None of it you remember anymore, right?
No, not even a lick of it.
Amazing. Yeah. We also just have to remember, and maybe we'll talk about this more in part 2, but like all this good stuff we're saying about heroes will not end well. This show ends poorly. The writer's strike is barreling towards us. Just keep it in mind. As we continue to be like, this is so good. They're really building a good foundation. Wow. That's gonna topple. Just Another show that went a while, in fact, much, 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 much longer, is Stargate SG-1, the other show in today's matchup. The Enemy Within was written by Brad Wright, directed by Dennis Barry. It aired back in the day, August 1st, 1997. Magellan, what happened in The Enemy Within?
In this episode, the team now designated SG-1 are planning their next foray through the gate as they try to map out the variety of sites available to them and locate their missing friends. O'Neill asks that Teal'c be allowed to join his team, but General Hammond thinks that will be unlikely, given that he's the host for a Goa'uld. Unknown to anyone, however, is that O'Neill's close friend, Major Charles Kowalski, leader of SG-2, has been infected by a Goa'uld, an immature version that has not yet taken complete control of the host. Kowalski is having regular blackouts during which the Goa'uld is trying to return to the gate. An MRI reveals what is wrong, but it's unlikely the creature that has fused itself to Kowalski's spine can be surgically removed. Meanwhile, Colonel Kennedy arrives to question Teal'c, who has pledged his loyalty to his new world. Alan, what'd you think of The Enemy Within?
I think it doesn't do this episode a favor that I watched it right after Heroes, which is like a big budget, modern TV show.
Mm-hmm.
But this episode felt a little dinky to me. That's exactly the word I would use, is dinky. Not bad, to be clear. And I have my gut check already locked in. I know which one of these two shows. So like keep that in mind as I proceed to dump on Stargate for a second. But like very flatly written, very like generic plot that we've seen a million times. Person's possessed by an alien. But I think there's a little bit of charm and magic inside of this base that they find themselves in. This primary set that SG-1 seems to take place in so far. And that is the obsession with process. With like the easy question is, well, how do we get it out of Kowalski? The difficult question is, should we get it out of Kowalski? And I don't know. I think that the way that listening to all the different characters play around with that sort of like philosophical debate is super fun. And for as generic as it is, and for how dinky it looks and feels, this is just really charming television. It's doing what it's doing very earnestly, and I respect it for that. I had a good time with The Enemy Within. What about you?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what I liked this episode. It's not necessarily the kind of thing that I am coming to Stargate for, because what we're coming here for is to see people step through the gate and go places and do stuff. But just like the Hero second episode, I think this episode does a great job of extending some of the like character interests and plots from the pilot and showing you, okay, here's where we could go long term with this set of things that we're trying to learn or figure out or explore or whatever. And in and of itself, like you're saying, something that's enjoyable about it is you get almost like if folks know the Farscape episode, A Human Reaction, which is, just to give the gist of it, Farscape, there's a character in space. He was shot through a wormhole from Earth, and now he's hanging out with these aliens. And there's an episode where he thinks he makes it back to Earth with his alien friends, and then proceeds to see what humanity will do when they're in a first contact situation with unusual aliens, motivated by what Jack O'Neill says. When he's talking to Teal'c, he says, like, it's a very human... What's the specific thing he says? He says, it's kind of a human thing. We tend to be afraid of what we don't know. And that's really what the episode is about, is like this episode of Stargate is, okay, now we know that all of this alien stuff is for real. It's not just something that Daniel Jackson is telling us is real from our trip through the Stargate from the movie. It's like, for real, for real. We're hanging out with an alien guy. The Stargate has worked multiple times. We are in contact with extraterrestrial entities. There are bad guys in space on the loose coming at us or trying to kill us or something. What do we do about that? And It is very interesting to see the characters debate and have different takes on, well, we should kill this thing right away. We should try to save our friends. Oh, we should keep it and study it and try to learn from it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is a compelling episode for those reasons you described.
Like, it's competently written, right? It's not effects heavy at all. It's very talky. It almost reminded me, controversial, it almost reminded me of like a TOS storyline where it's here's the characters, they're set in stone for now. And then, like, by the way, at the end, Teal'c is a plot thread that we need to figure out sooner than later. Like, are we allowed to have his people in our team? And what does that mean for us? I was so disappointed when the episode ended with them all suiting up and jumping into the Stargate, because I was like, fuck, that's what I wanted. No, wait. But, like, I think it's important, and it shows a commitment to your storytelling, that this little tiny detail that they dropped at the very end of the pilot gets the entire second episode is about that little detail. I thought that was very smart and very like responsible of them to do it, even though it's like a fairly generic one of those.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say it's like a TOS episode, because you know, there is this sort of like bottle episode feeling to this one, and I think something that's working against it is you feel a little hemmed in. You wish you could go through the Stargate, and you're in a bunker. Like when you're on a Star Trek episode and they don't leave the ship and they're doing stuff on the ship and somebody has a thing on their spine or whatever, you still get the like contextualizing shots of, it's the Enterprise going through space, captain's log, we're in fucking space and there's a weird thing on the ship. Like, you still feel like you're going somewhere or you are somewhere. But when Stargate isn't going anywhere, we're not on a ship, we're underground in like somebody's office. And it's like, I don't want to be here. I want to go on an adventure. So we were singing the praises in the previous Stargate discussion about like, wow, the show can go places that like a Star Trek never could, because you can teleport straight into the ocean or whatever. And it's like, that's true, but you lose the Enterprise in the process of making that trade. There isn't an Enterprise here, so it's not quite as exciting to have like an on the ship episode, so to speak.
And like, this is responsible storytelling too, because that what we're describing is like an away team episode, right? A classic like Star Trek and other sci-fi show thing, which we feel mixed about. It depends on the show how much I like it or don't like it. But they are expensive to make because you have to make new sets every single time. So I think it's like responsible to, in episode 2, be like, okay, we're just going to do it on our set, and we can tell a whole story beginning to end, almost like it's a play, or a radio drama, just
Yeah,
like in one set. And the whole thing is the debate of like, do we kill this thing or not? Because will it kill the person? Could we use it as a resource? And how do we kill it? Like, what are the odds? You know, because there's that moment when the doctor says like it's a easy 10% chance, at least 10 to 20% that the guy is gonna survive. And he's like, nice. What are the chances that the creature dies? And he's like, oh, it's 100%. And he's like, that's interesting. That's actually odds that we can play with. And yeah, so yeah, I just think that maybe not the most fun decision to make your second episode take place on the most generic set ever, but like you got to show people that we can tell stories without going to, you know, fairy world every single time, and get them excited for when that does happen.
Yeah. And I think what I ended up really loving about this episode is it's taking this step back to set the stakes for the whole show going forward. Yeah. Because the movie does what it does to show us like space, explosions, teleport, whoa, bad guys. The pilot episode is like, we're back and it's TV, and here are the personal stakes for why Daniel Jackson and Jack O'Neill are on the mission and going to stay on this team. And then this episode is like, and here are the things that we're going to explore and figure out over the course of the whole rest of the show. Where does humanity belong in the context of, you know, the wider galaxy or the wider universe? I loved this idea, and it's very complex and nuanced and a little hypocritical, but I love this idea that like what Teal'c is saying is, oh yeah, you know, I heard that there used to be this planet that the Goa'uld like first conquered and first got there, the people they enslaved from, and nobody knows where it is. And they're like, yeah, man, it's here. It's Earth. We're the source of the like enslaved race of the Goa'uld Empire. And Teal'c's like, oh fuck, wow, that's cool. And so it kind of repositions the Stargate mission as this sort of like the lineage of humanity, and like the importance of Earth is that we were an oppressed people of this larger empire that broke free and were able to sequester ourselves such that we could like become strong enough to rebel against them and dismantle their intergalactic empire or whatever. Like, that's cool. That is a cool thing for Earth to be. It does suck that it's like the American military that's like, yeah, we're gonna fight the oppressors or whatever. And it feels very classic America in that way of, yeah, we beat the British in 1776, so that means we're always fighting for freedom in every single thing we do or whatever. But I just thought that was such a cool concept for like how to position Earth in the context of the wider universe.
I think I agree. And also, this brings to mind to me this question: what show wins Couch Madness, and what does it say about us, like the show that we choose? Because we have a couple of things in the bracket right now that are like change what Chats becomes for a little while. And like we talked about this in the pilot, but like watching Stargate means we're doing a military show. I said the same thing when we watched Sequest, although it felt less so. This feels very, very a military show. Like, It's kind of hard to explain, but it's just so, I mean, like, you don't hire Don Davis for nothing, right? That's why you bring him on. He's so good in this episode. He's always freaking good. He never doesn't bring the heat. Or we watched the like Quantum Leap, which is like a show that is about identity and transforming, but is also like, oops, this week it's transphobic as fuck. Oh, well, actually, this week he's playing a gay man. And like, so you just have to roll the dice with certain shows and be like, how much are we willing to put up with? And so now the thing I'm running in my head is like, how much military stuff am I willing to put up with for the sake of Stargate?
Right.
And I think, truthfully, off-planet or off-base episodes, I would be way more willing to put up with it, even though it'll feel very colonize-y, I bet. But when it's on base, everybody is like, we got to tell the higher board. That's going to get you court-martialed, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, this is like a story about a military mystery or whatever. Ugh.
Right. And it feels like a core part of the show's identity, and like the ensemble's identity, is that kind of militaristic camaraderie thing. Because, you know, the winning argument of what should we do with Kowalski and the alien that's inside of him is Jack O'Neill kind of banging the table and being like, no, I'm not going to let one of my guys die. I'm going to do the military guy thing and stand by my guys here. And like the thing that gets Teal'c invited into the ensemble is Jack O'Neill being like, I saw how brave you were in that fight and you're one of my guys now. And like, I'm going to freaking fight for my guys. Fuck.
Yeah.
That's
my
what
guys.
I'm doing here. And, you know, it feels like it wants that to be like an unquestionably true thing about what motivates characters, is that they are like bound together by, you know, the ties of duty and battle, and all of that stuff matters to them and should matter to us. And it also, I think, is really significant that like this other big event that launches us into the new reality or the new normal of what the show is going to be about and like finally settles the ensemble is the death of one of our guys. And it's part of the military vibe of the show. And I also think it's like a pretty strong statement on the part of the show as well, because Kowalski's in the movie, right? Like, if you're coming to Stargate the show and you're like, oh, cool, they recast all the movie people, you're not expecting them to kill off one of the movie characters that they just recast. So the show is doing this thing to be like, not only is the camaraderie thing important, but everybody is like in danger of being compromised or killed on these missions that we're going on, which it feels like heightens that sense of we need to stick together and, you know, protect each other and that kind of thing. So that definitely is like a huge part of what this show is about, it feels like.
Yeah, keep our group together, keep everybody that we care about with us. I like that, and I think that's honestly a thing that Teal'c probably finds super appealing about this group is like these are people who fight for each other and who fight others in honor of each other. Like there's that line where Carter is telling O'Neill like, we could leave him here and then we would have to nuke the station and like we'd all have to evacuate or we would all just die. And like, that's an option too. And he's like, well, that's the worst option. And it becomes this question of like, how much suffering are you willing to, you know, commit for us to figure things out? Like we see the value of keeping the Goa'uld, which I love that some people just say Gould. And then Teal'c is like, and then Teal'c is very deliberately like Goa'uld. Like they're all saying it wrong on purpose. Yeah. Like we could keep it and we could research it and then we could fight them better. That ties back into that first scene, which is so strange when they're just watching the door get attacked for like 5 minutes of like, they're gonna try to get in, but it's only 3 micrometers away from the portal. So even if they go through it, they're just hitting a door. That's weird. And I'm like, what is your goal here? What's your goal with the Stargate? Is it you want to go through it? Are you waiting until they stop attacking before you can go through it? Like, I have questions about the mechanics. Is that why we haven't gone on our first adventure yet? Is because we're waiting for them to stop attacking so that we can use it? Is there a rental system that
somebody's in the bathroom?
Yeah, can you guys finish up? We want to go. We want to go on space adventures. Can you guys wrap it up, please? Thank you. Thank you so much. I don't know. Do you have any other big thoughts on this one? Notes?
Just further on the well, 2 thoughts. I had one more thought on the kind of military, you know, bro code thing, which is also like a big triumph in this episode is Major Briggs, what's his name? General Hammond.
Major
General Hammond really dealing with that. He was like an FBI guy or something, or some government stooge. And it's like, get the heck out of here. You don't get to take our guy. He's Teal'c. He's one of our freaking guys. And the president's on the big red phone. So fuck you. Get out of here. Like that feels like another victory for the, you know, the blue collar military guy, which is just kind of a part of how Stargate does business. That all being said, I'm really interested in Teal'c and his position in this story, and this episode does a great job, I think, of establishing the Jack O'Neill Teal'c relationship. Because Jack comes up to him and he's like, "Hey, man." Teal'c is like, "Am I a prisoner?" Jack says, yeah. Teal'c says, "I understand." Jack says, "We're not exactly living up to your expectations. Or we're not exactly living up to your expectations of us, are we?" And so there's this sort of like, Jack is an ambassador for humanity, but also is like resentful of humanity and trying to help this guy navigate being a part of the human society. Teal'c is like looking for purpose, looking for who's doing the right thing. I want to like pledge my support to these people who saved me, but they're not accepting me, and I don't know if I'm totally on board with them yet or not. I just find their relationship and Teal'c's position and all of this really, really interesting. So I'm excited to see more of that.
Yeah, I think top two things I care the most about are like Teal'c and everybody's relationship to him, and the humanity inherited the earth and is overthrowing the oppressors. That's like awesome world building. And like O'Neill is not he's kind of our typical sci-fi show protagonist, but he's not John Crichton. He's not obviously like a Picard. He's not. He's kind of a John Sheridan. I think that's the closest, I guess, to him.
Yeah.
But he doesn't have like a wife. He's not a wife guy in the same way that Sheridan is. So I'm
not
just
anymore,
like, right, exactly. He was, yeah. I'm curious about him. My last thing is that we didn't get enough Daniel Jackson in this.
Yeah. Him and
Carter.
Carter. Yeah, Daniel Jackson and Carter are kind of on the sidelines, being like, "Oh, that's kind of interesting."
Yeah,
what does that make you think about the other people we know who have the Goa'ulds in them? Okay, well, maybe next episode we can talk more about this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I want to hear them. I want to see adventures so badly, but maybe I won't. Maybe I will. Who the hell knows? That's all I have.
About 30 minutes or so.
Yeah, approximately. And you will too, folks. Because when we come back, we are going to return to the hypotronic time chamber.
Hypotronic.
Is hypotronic a word? Hypotonic is a word.
Hypotonic.
Hypotonic, having a lower osmotic pressure than a particular fluid. Yeah, it's a hypotonic time chamber. It's like blood cells.
Hypotonic.
Anyways, when Magellan finishes singing his little jingle, we'll be back to make our final decision of Heroes or Stargate SG-1. It's a big one, nerds. Let's get into it. Woo! Welcome back to Couch Madness. I just generated so much energy doing this intro that I don't know where to aim it. Hi, Magellan.
Hey, what's up? How are you?
Oh my god! I went back to my home planet because I'm Poochie. Remember the episode where Lisa and Bart write an Itchy and Scratchy cartoon, but nobody will accept it, so they have to put it under Abe's name, and they get to tour the animation studios, and the guy is like, we get around a lot, we save a lot of budget by repeating backgrounds, and then the actual background repeats. That's a quality television right there. And we're also discussing some quality television right here with two really good shows. So, as folks know, if you've been keeping it with Couch Madness, and you're in round 2, so I really freaking hope you do, we have a foolproof method for moving shows forward. And it's going to get harder because the shows are getting better. And we eventually have to pick a finalist that we watch all the way through. The first part of our foolproof method is the gut check. Now grab that belly, test that pH balance, and tell me, Magellan, sight unseen, which of these shows do you want to move on to the next round? Yeah, it's hard. It's going to get harder.
All right. Let me walk you through my whole thought process.
Okay.
I don't have to.
Okay, never mind. I'll put that bite of cereal down. I literally went all the way to my mouth and then I put it down.
Go ahead, eat your cereal. I'll talk to the folks for a second.
Okay.
So, as I was saying before, I came into this week being like, Stargate SG-1, that's what I want. I want Stargate in the finals. I have this Stargate quarter zip, so I got to use it, whatever. And I'm very happy that I've now brought, if you think about my life from 2021 to 2024, and you were to average out the number of new Stargate episodes I've watched per year in that time, I've brought my average up to about half a new Stargate episode per year, which is great. So I felt pretty good coming into this week. Felt good about that. And then I watched the Heroes episode. I was like, shoot, that was actually really good. And I want to watch more Heroes, and Heroes is entertaining and interesting. And then I watched like 2 minutes of Stargate, and I was like, okay, yeah, this is the kind of show that I could just watch 10 seasons of right now and be totally happy with that. So I don't know. And then in the conversation that we've had tonight, I think it was easier for me to kind of move into like more transferable conversations about Stargate than about Heroes. Like I think a lot of my thoughts or our conversation about Heroes were about, where is this character plot going to go? Or what do we like about this? Or whatever. As opposed to our Stargate conversation was more about something, it felt like. So I'm leaning Stargate. I feel good about it. I think I would be sad if we weren't watching more Stargate. The prospect of not watching more Heroes doesn't really bum me out all that much.
Okay. Honest.
Yeah. But also, like, I would be very interested to watch more Heroes. But I think we're at the point where I'm going to feel that way about every show we cut.
You are.
So
yeah.
I'm trying to shift my metric to be something that's like
metric
actually going to help me make decisions. So I think I'm on Team Stargate on this one.
Okay, great. That's your gut check. Oh, did you want my gut check?
I do, yeah. What's yours?
Sometimes when we podcast, I put my hand under my belly and just kind of caress it and cradle it, and that's what I'm doing right now because I'm doing a gut check. It's Stargate. I'm not explaining why. Let's move on.
All right.
It's time for the moments, characters, foundations, and adornments. The memes, schemes, screams, and themes are up first. Memes. Which of these shows had more elements of ironic or semi-ironic silliness?
You're really not going to say why you chose Stargate?
I'll say why I chose Stargate, sure. I'll gladly do it. I felt really scared. That was like walking into a noob house and pretending it's yours. Like, I don't do the beginning of the next segment. That felt so...
Do you want... We could just do the first category real quick.
So relatable.
Here.
Such a relatable experience walking into a new person's house and pretending it's yours. We all do it. We all do it. I'm doing it on the reg, man.
Memes? I don't know. Neither of these episodes were like super funny or silly. Like I know Stargate, but I feel like Heroes might have taken it this week.
Yeah, this is a very dark Stargate episode, or like a fairly dark Stargate, so I think it's Heroes.
And that's saying something because the Heroes episode had a guy's freaking skull sawed off and the brain plopped out.
Hell yeah. It was baller.
Schemes, moments of intrigue and plot movement.
That's Heroes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Screams, more moments of excitement and surprise. I guess Heroes.
Yeah.
But Kowalski was like, I'm still bad.
My name's Cuckoo Spaghetti. And you're like...
And I like the flashy eyes effect.
Excitement and surprise. It's Heroes, yeah.
Themes, Stargate.
I'm so excited for the vote on this one. You wrote Starfate. Better show.
Okay, do you want to tell me why you picked Stargate, or do the rest of this first?
Yeah. I'll tell you why I picked it. So last week when Death Note won, one of the things I didn't mention on pod, but I mentioned on the Discord, was that the secret, real reason that I felt so committed to Death Note was I was inspired by friend of the podcast Arthur's now on hiatus podcast, Full Metal Analyst, which is a fantastic podcast that I loved listening to during the pandemic. And it was them and their friends listening or watching Fullmetal Alchemist for the first time. Brotherhood, that is. And we were on it a couple times. It was very good. Good pod. And I wanted to do an anime podcast that was in the spirit of Fullmetal Analyst because I want that show to exist in our minds and hearts, right? So it's like the secret reason. I think the secret reason that I want Stargate to win, and I'm just going to say it so it's no longer a secret, is like I want to be a Stargate person. I want to finally understand what this is about and like get into the meat and potatoes. And then there's so much minutia. There's boundless potential for this show, whether or not
Right.
that's good or bad. I mean, we do know at some point that it ends abruptly, but also at some point the cast shifts and we become kind of like a proto Farscape, and that's cool.
Mhm.
You know, we get Ben Browder and
Well,
Claudia Black.
like a post Farscape.
Yeah, sorry, a post Farscape. I forgot how time works. Once we're into the aughts, we become we get actors from Farscape in it as the main cast, and that's cool. And there's so much spin-off potential. Like, I think honestly, the biggest downside against Stargate is that it's long, and if it
Right.
wasn't long, this would be so easy.
Right.
And so when I try not to think too much about that, I think, because like I was listening to our Lost Tales Chatsalon 5 episode recently in preparation for our other podcast appearance, which I don't think has come out yet, so I won't say it. But I loved the end of Chatsalon 5 because we were so emotionally invested. Like, we're practically crying talking about like the last time we're going to hear about Jakar and how he goes off into space and like, oh, is this a good ending for Sheridan? And I was like, I need that again. I had that with Star Trek TNG and I need it again. I'm addicted to endings, to meaningful endings.
Yeah, I mean that was exactly the thing I felt when the Stargate theme music came on, is that feeling of like, yeah, it's time for another episode of Trek Chats, and I get to watch the show that I don't know much about, but I know that it feels like coming home, baby. Here we go.
Yeah.
And maybe that just means that we need to get back to doing like Trek Chats episodes with full seasons of TV instead of movies that aren't so good. But it feels like home in a way that Heroes, like, well, we'll talk about it. Let's keep doing this stuff.
Yeah, keep doing the stuff.
The characters, Clunks, Hunks, Junks, and Punks. Which one had characters that were dorkier in a fun way? I think Stargate.
Yeah, I'm going to
They're
just
kinda-
say they barely eke it out.
Even Jack O'Neill's kind of a dork. Even General Hammond's kind of a big doofus.
He's a military dork.
Hunks, which had characters that were hotter in a fun way.
I think Heroes ekes this out.
Mhm.
Mahinder's hot, I think.
Yeah, Mohinder and I think her name's Eden
Yeah,
or
Eden.
something. Does she say it in the episode?
No, you probably saw it on the Amazon review, but her name's Eden.
I looked it up on IMDb or something.
Uh-huh.
When the two of them are like looking around on the floor and then look at each other, run into each other with that look of like, oh, we're gonna fall in love in a few episodes. That was kind of funny.
I want to be clear to people. I'm not gay. Just because I only ever talk about how guys are hot, like, there's a female default. I wrote a poem about this recently that I'm never going to share with anybody except maybe you, Magellan. But
Okay.
like, I identify as bisexual. I just don't talk about the women I find attractive that often. But like, when I find a lady pretty, I like to point out when the guys are cool and hot because that's how I butter my bread. Okay, so that's just, I want to make that clear for the legal team.
Great.
Junks, which had characters that were more eccentric in a fun way. Eccentric, huh?
Stargate.
Eccentric. Yeah, Heroes is playing them as real people. I think that's a close one, but I'd give that to Stargate.
That's rough. That's a tough call. And then the Punks, characters more rebellious. That's
Heroes.
Okay, Foundations, the Clues, Crews, Hues, and Shoes. Which one has more plot to explore and unravel over time?
3, 2, 1. Stargate.
Heroes. Oh, yeah. I'll give it to Stargate. Yeah. 'cause
More
we're
plot.
Seeding some stuff. Crews, ensemble dynamics.
Stargate. Heroes is barely an ensemble. Like, it's an ensemble,
Yeah,
yes,
but don't you think
they're
they're
not
gonna
talking to
meet?
each other. Are they? When? How soon?
I guess you're right. Okay, Stargate. Hues, which one has more thematic range? Stargate, I think, showed us in this episode that they can get like kind of scary, kind of serious, and it's not like hokey. It wasn't amazing. They didn't do horror like crazy well, but it was pretty capable.
What's a show that does horror well? I guess the X-Files.
Yeah.
That's easy.
Shoes, which has more mileage from its base premise. Freaking Stargate. Come on.
Absolutely freaking.
Get out of town. All right, the fits, hits, its, and wits. The fits, costumes and props, outfits, things like that.
I'm going to give this to Heroes because they're kind of like, these characters are in the costumes that are going to identify them as heroes. Like, it's sort of their equivalent of the red and blue tights.
Right. Hits, better use of music. I think Heroes, we like called out some specific creative ways that they use music.
Yeah, agreed.
Um,
Did we talk about that on the episode or just in my notes? How the
We talked
Heroes
about it.
seems. Okay, great.
Oh, how that theme song? What?
Well, when cool stuff happens in Heroes, they play the theme song again. I thought that was really cool. Like,
that is cool.
I think it was like when Matt realizes he has powers, it does the which I think I said in the first episode is a jingle that gets used to get used in Arabic TV a lot, and I never knew it was from Heroes. Gotta love music licensing.
The It's, which makes better use of the cast and guests.
How about Heroes?
Yeah, and then the Wits, the script, and the writing. I wrote down more lines from Stargate that were like good lines, and more lines from Heroes that were like, why does the dad talk like that? So I want to give this one to Stargate.
Yeah, all right, fair enough. Fair enough.
Okay, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, it's 8 and 8. What the heck?
Whoa!
What the heck?
I think I know.
I mean, I was on the line here. I guess that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, no, it's to be expected for sure.
Yeah, I don't know. Is this it? Are we closing the chat's book on Heroes?
What? We haven't voted yet. What are you talking about?
Oh, you're right. We have. Sorry, because maybe your mind changed.
All right, you ready to vote?
Here's how I would do Heroes.
Okay, yeah, give me your pitch.
It's a Heroes / City of Heroes podcast, and
The brothers made this joke in the.
They did?
Today.
Of course they did. Frickin', we share one brain cell. And
Pat said, "Yes, I'm excited to play City of Heroes for 1 week and then stop playing when Heroes gets knocked out in Couch Madness." owned, ruined. We will play City of Heroes with the chats Discord. Don't you worry, guys.
Yeah, I do want to. I do definitely want to play City of Heroes with chats Discord. I want to stream City of Heroes, all that stuff. I want to put my foot in the door and say I'm interested in some kind of weird concept podcast that somehow combines playing City of Heroes and watching the TV show Heroes and fully living in the aughts. I don't know what that concept is or how it works. I don't think that concept is what should be coming out of Couch Madness, but I'm open to that, and probably only that as a context in which Heroes is watched on the show. Not that I'm voting right now.
Oh my god, yeah, don't vote.
To be clear.
I know what I would call that podcast.
What?
City of... Siri thought I said hi to her. City of Heroes. But City of, and then it'd be like the eclipse moon.
Ooh, classy.
City of Heroes. All right, we're voting in 5, 4, 3. You have to type your answer, John. I don't see you typing. 2.
I didn't see you typing either.
I already typed it. 2.
Oh.
1. Go, hit it. Yeah! Daniel Johnson, you made it, baby. You fucking made it. I'm so proud.
I guess we gotta learn your name.
Oh, Daniel Jackson. Crap. Daniel Johnson. Huge L. And
the way that I remember is that Daniel Jackson and Jack O'Neill's names are basically the other person's names, but flipped.
Daniel Jackson, Jack and Daniel. Jack Daniels. Wait. Daniel Jackson, Jack O'Neill.
It's like
30 flirty and thriving. 30 flirty.
30 flirty and thriving. 30 flirty and thriving. All right, well, bummer for Heroes.
It's so long. I don't know.
Show's gotta lose.
Yeah, here's the thing. I do still want to watch Heroes in my lifetime just to understand myself. What captivated our friend Jim for years and years of his life, and 2, like I feel like as aughts TV people, like we should know what the deal with Heroes was. I want to watch Heroes Reborn. I've heard some weird stuff about that one, but like for the sake of Couch Madness, Stargate takes it. It looks so. Yeah. Season 1, episode 3. Actually, we're gonna watch season 1, episode 3, so I can tell you what happens in it.
Okay.
While exploring a world populated by Mongol descendants, Captain Carter is abducted by a wife of a local warlord.
Oh,
no! Not the wife!
Stargate, no! What are you doing? Oh, that's what they're gonna put up against Xena Warrior Princess? Are you kidding?
Brutal.
You're gonna get fucking wrecked, Stargate.
Wait, what do you mean against Xena? Xena's going against something else next week. Going against fucking...
I know, but if Xena wins.
But be fucking for real, bro. But be fucking for real. Oh my god, season 1, episode 3 of Xena also features a wife plot. So anyways. Oh my god, but it sounds 8 million times cooler. Sorry. I'll stop reading.
Yeah, we got to do
That's-
next week's matchup.
Next week's matchup is going to feature a guest, hopefully, if we can get the coordination right. Because it's a beefy one, guys. It's maybe the hardest matchup of round 2 of Couch Madness.
I
Now,
think so, yeah.
we've talked a lot about these two shows. They've been talked about on the Discord almost daily since we started talking about them. It's Quantum Leap second episode versus the second episode of Xena Warrior Princess. This is the big one, guys. People really want one or the other of these. We don't have a consensus in the chat. We don't have a consensus among Magellan and I.
We don't?
Well, do it. We have to, I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't know yet.
You want Quantum Leap? You can want Quantum Leap. That's fine.
We haven't even watched them yet, bro. What are you saying? We haven't even watched the second episode. Give them a chance.
Okay.
And we'll come back and we'll give them a chance and we'll have a person on to help us talk through it and it'll be great. Quantum Leap v Xena Warrior Princess is next week. Okay, Magellan, with that being said, for now, we must continue into the end of the podcast.
Yes.
Where can people find you online?
You can find me on another podcast called Super Smash Echoes that I do with my friend Justin, where we play video games related to the Super Smash Brothers franchise, Super Smash Echoes. Check it out. You can also read some of my writing on my Substack at notthatmagellan.substack.com. Alan, what about you?
You can find me trying to cut back on my sodium by not being getting caught at the McDonald's anytime soon. And you can also listen to me on a few other podcasts. The Unova Tourism Committee has now launched its first meeting or episode. That's a podcast where Six and I from Scanline Media are playing through Gen 5 of Pokemon, one town at a time. And we're talking about how they, depict New York State and America from a Japanese lens. It's been really cool. We're recording episode 2 this week. It's going to be fantastic. You can also hear me on the Garnet Wager and featuring the guest voice of Magellan, Jay, Fluke, that is. And that's overall at scanlinemedia.com. And then finally, you can hear me on Talking Marketing. Every other month, I do an interview podcast for my volunteer job with AMA Boston. And it's about marketing and work and fun stuff. So check all of that out. John, I'd like to do the plugs on this week if that's kosher.
Please do.
Okay, I will. If you have questions, comments, or concerns for us, you can email us at chatspod@gmail.com. We are at chatspod on X or Twitter if you're nasty. We are on YouTube now. Chats, a television podcast. Give us a subscribe. If you are listening to this, no matter what, please go on the YouTube channel. Hit that subscribe. I have now uploaded every single episode from the RSS feed onto YouTube. We're getting views all up the wazoo. We're getting comments from everyone. I really appreciate the comments for people discovering like our 8-year-old podcast on YouTube. I don't know what algorithm is pushing it to them, but I'm glad for the YouTube algorithm for once. So check us out there. And new episodes will be published there automatically. You can rate us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify if you like the show. Make sure to follow us on those platforms as well. And if you have the financial means, consider supporting us at Patreon. Patreon.com/chatspod. $1, $3, and $5 a month. There are different tiers. You get different bonuses, movie commentaries, pilots, hangout podcasts where we get even sillier than we've been on this one. And at $5 or more, you get everything I just said, and you get thanked at the end of every main feed episode. So as of today, our $5 patrons include Arthur, Emrys, Felicia, Jen, Justin, Kyrie, Lee, Marcus, May Louise, Magellan's mom, Nick and Pat of the Brothers at Infinite War, Noel, Six, and Stefan. Thank you for supporting chats. All these chats can be found at chatspot.com. And if you like our main feed art, it was done by our friend Camilla. She's at Camilla Strader on social media if you want to support her work. Last but not least, our final segment is called Chatsums. Similar to the Vlasic snacking pickle, we recommend you something to snack on between now and next week. Magellan, can you tell me what is or are your Chatsums, please?
So recently, I was bummed to learn that years ago I had Chatsumed Dominion, and I couldn't re-Chatsum it. But since then, I've accumulated a few Dominion-related Chatsums that I would like to share with you now. So just to remind folks, Dominion, it kind of initiated or popularized a board game genre called deck building, or it's a deck builder, which is essentially like a trading card game, except instead of trading the cards, you add cards to your deck over the course of the game, and your deck gets better and better as the game goes on, is the basic premise.
Ooh.
I really enjoy Dominion. It's hard sometimes to find people who want to devote an hour of sitting at the same table to play Dominion with me. And so I've started venturing into ways to play Dominion online. There is a great app that's on Android, and I believe you can also play it on Steam. The UI is very intuitive. It's got nice UI. I don't know what my second point was going to be, but it's Dominion digitally. The downside is if you want to play with the expansions, you have to buy those expansions within the game, which is kind of a big monetary commitment. So you can also just play Dominion with all of the cards for free in your browser at dominion.games, and you don't have to pay for stuff. The UI is like a little crustier and not as animated and doesn't quite guide you as much visually through what's going on. But Dominion.games is free, and you can just play it online.
Oh, this website is crusty. Holy crap.
Yeah. Yeah. So you either going to pay the premium for like a smoother, nicer version of it on the app, or you can just play the game there. If, like me, you've purchased Dominion, maybe you've purchased an expansion, and you're like, these boxes look cool, but they're not very space efficient because the boxes are set up so that the cards are like kind of on display, so you can pick from them menu style as you're assembling which cards are going to be in the game in any given iteration of that game. But if you're looking for a way to arrange your cards that's much more space efficient, maybe it's not as aesthetically pleasing. You have to kind of skim through stuff to find things. But at this point, you know your cards well enough that you know what you have, you know where it is. You can check out, there's this company that I came across when I went to PAX Unplugged called Folded Space. And what they do is they make board game box inserts that you can build out of this like kind of interlocking foam material. And it's like precision cut, so the pieces lock together. You're supposed to glue them, but it didn't feel like I needed to in order for it to be in the box and contain everything. And they have different sized and shaped inserts for lots of different popular games that have cards and fiddly bits. And so if there's a game that you're getting to the table a lot and you're finding the boxing solution for it is frustrating, I recommend Folded Space. And last, Dominion related chatsome is like 80% of my media diet in the past week have been the YouTube videos of a channel called Dominion Cards.
Whoa.
It is a channel with less than 1,000 subscribers with 130-ish videos. The guy recently, 2 months ago, posted a nearly 2-hour-long video about his thoughts on various Dominion expansions after being silent on YouTube for like a year. Prior to that point, these are the videos I've been watching a lot of. He has these like 25 to 45-minute videos, each one about an individual card from the game and all of the strategic implications of that card being in play.
Oh my God.
It's awesome. It's so great. He has an extremely pleasant British accent, and the video is just like a PowerPoint presentation that he put together about that card. And he just takes you through it for 25 minutes, and then he generates a bunch of random sets of cards with that card in it, and he talks you through like, okay, if this card showed up in this situation, you know, I might want it, I might use it in this way, I might interact with these or whatever. And dog, I've been just finding myself in situations where it's like, yeah, I wonder what the Dominion Cards guy thinks about gardens, about the gardens card.
Yeah.
I'm partway through the Bandit video. What does he think about gaining golds?
Yeah.
I'm curious.
Of course, his most popular video is about the seller, the worst card in Dominion. But what if it's not?
That's his first video, yeah.
Okay.
Seller
wow,
is
these are
not very good.
awesome. Someone top comment, this deserves a lot more views. It's like a well-prepared university lecture about the intricacies of a single Dominion card.
Yeah, it does feel like that for sure.
If you're not down this rabbit hole already, this might not be the way to start, but this is for the real geeks
No,
out there.
no. This is not the starting place.
I mean, it's like a simple game. You just like throw cards down and you get victory points. What are you talking about? This is awesome. I'm watching these later.
Mm-hmm.
Incredible. I have 2 quickies for you.
Yeah, what do you got?
The first is a book that girlfriend of the podcast, Amanda, lent me. It's Attached by Amir Levine and Rachel S.F. Heller. It's a book about attachment styles. It's the first long book I'm reading of 2024. It's pretty good so far. It's got a lot of like hypotheticals and, data about where they got the different types of attachment styles. This is one of those things that's like, if you know, like if you're in the sort of like study of world, study of dating world, then you definitely are intimately familiar with attachment styles. This book is like the Bible for that stuff. And it's the reason a lot of people know it. It's quite well written and easy to understand if that's something you have a curiosity about. I have heard that one of the critiques of the book is that it spends a lot of its time focusing on the anxious attachment style and not so much talking about the other ones, because that's like the most common one for a lot of people who would, for example, read a book about attachment styles. So I'm going to give a soft chasm to Attached until I read more of it, and I can give it a harder one. And then I just want to shout out a website. So I've been talking about my Simpsons hyperfixation lately, right? We all know that. And what's really helped with the meme initiative, which is, again, for you, if you don't know, every time I see a Simpsons meme in the wild, I look up what episode it is, and I add it to a list, a big spreadsheet that I have, and then I watch it. And I'm watching them in chronological order. There's a website called Frinkiac, named after Dr. Frink, FRINKIAC.com. And it is a website that indexed every single script from every single episode of The Simpsons, at least from the first 10 seasons. And you can type any line that you think of from any episode, and it will find you screen caps of the scene that it's from. And then if you click them, you get the name of the episode, the season and episode number, and you can make a meme or GIF out of it. And I'm like, this website is
Wow.
a gold mine.
Wow.
It's incredible that somebody made it, that they indexed all these scripts, and that you can turn any line from any Simpsons episode into a meme or GIF. Truly, truly impressive.
You want to know which one I chose to search?
Which one?
Have you seen Lisa versus Malibu Stacy?
Yeah, I have.
Okay. One of my favorite Simpsons jokes is when Lisa's like, "Don't you think there's something wrong with what all your Stacys are saying?" Because she's upset about the kind of sexist stereotypes of the Malibu Stacy dolls. And then the one girl goes, "There's something wrong with what my Stacy says." She pulls the drawstring and it goes, "My spidey sense is tingling. Anybody call for a web slinger?" So I just searched, "There's something wrong with what my Stacy says," and it popped up. So
oh my God. You have actually, I'm realizing that you've quoted a lot of lines at me that I'm now like, oh, that was Magellan quoting a Simpsons thing.
Something wrong with what my Stacy says.
It's like a guy's voice.
Anybody call for a web slinger?
God, it rules. So check out Freakiac. Even if you're bored, just hit random and they'll give you a quote and a line.
Mm-hmm.
It's great. I highly recommend it. And it's making this project 100 times easier, because if I even see one in the wild, I'm like, okay, fuck, what was that? Oh, that's the episode where Homer gets fat. Anyways, Frinkiac and Attached are my chatsums this week. That's what we got, folks. We'll be back for our incredible matchup next week. And I want to say thank you to Magellan for being for being the metal gate to my Stargate, because he's always 3 nanometers away, or micrometers, or whatever.
Oh.
At least in my heart he is. And thank you guys so much for listening to Couch Madness. Bye-bye.